Hello, and welcome to Cannabis the Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tori. Each episode will feature a candid conversation about how the cannabis plant has positively impacted individuals' wellness and bliss. Here to honor the plant and have fun. Hello, Cannabis listeners. Welcome back. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Ivoree Anoamp. We found each other through Instagram because we're both pursuing this self-healing and we're, public conscious cannabis consumers. And so Ivoree is a multi-passionate wellness guide, and I'll let you take the floor and continue introducing yourself.
Thank you, Tori. So basically, I don't even know how to explain it. I work in the cannabis industry. I'm a huge advocate for cannabis wellness, and I do a few different things. I work as a brand ambassador for a few different brands, and then I also help manage a cannabis delivery service. And I'm also currently learning how to trade foreign exchange currencies because I want to teach women of color how to do that and by extension, fund their own cannabis businesses or just businesses in general.
I think that's so dope. And I can't understand the graphs that you're always posting. I definitely need to learn more about that.
Oh, honestly, I'm still just learning. So half the time I'm just I literally just started to understand. So then I post it. That's really the only reason.
But that is so interesting. And that's kind of, just the MO of being an entrepreneur is just trying it, and not even being an entrepreneur, just living a joyful life, just trying the things you're interested in. But
absolutely, yeah.
So to just set the scene, I like to ask, what was your first encounter with cannabis like?
Ooh, so I actually tried. Oh, let me remember. My very first time was in college, actually. So I was living in the dorms, and I really was never interested in trying it. I grew up in a very religious family, so cannabis was, synonymous with heroin for me. So it never crossed my mind to try it. But I was dating someone at the time whose roommates consume heavily. And I'm talking every single time I saw them, they were high. And so there was one evening where my boyfriend at the time had left to go do something. And I don't know how, but I ended up hanging out with his roommates and their girlfriends. And I don't really know how the conversation went, but I ended up trying it. And honestly, it blew my mind. I had the most amazing first experience. I know a lot of people don't, but my first experience was great. I was so euphoric. I was laughing so loud, and I'm very uncomfortable in situations. So I have no idea how I was able to hang out with my boyfriend at the time's roommates without him. But
Right.
but I had a great time with them, and I was laughing and I was joking, and it was honestly the first time in a long time that I felt like I wasn't carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. But it's crazy because after that, I really didn't ever do it because the guy I was dating at the time was super against it too. And he saw it as a drug, and he was on his way to do he was trying to get into the FBI. So he was absolutely against it. So after that first experience, I actually didn't try it again for another maybe 2 years.
From your point of view, I mean, it seems like you weren't judging those people, but you were distancing yourself from the plant at that time. And so just in between that experience and the next, was your mind opened a little bit to using it, or you still held the same beliefs, or what were your thoughts then?
So I want to say before I even tried it with them, my eyes kind of opened a little bit more to the idea of trying it. Previous to that, because I had two RAs who were the most amazing women I had ever met in my life. Like, they were so comfortable with themselves and they were just so outspoken. They were very big advocates for social justice. And at the time, like, they were just everything that I wanted to be, basically, everything that I wanted to emanate, I guess. And they were actually heavy consumers. Like, they consumed all the time. But these two women were top of their classes. They were involved in every single orientation program for new students. Like, they were my RAs. Like, they kind of they shifted what a typical like person who consumes looked for me.
Right.
So I want to say that was kind of what made it more comfortable for me to try. Um,
Mm-hmm.
with his roommates. And then after that, like, it definitely changed my entire outlook. I started, well, I still didn't consume, but I wasn't very judgmental of anybody else who did. And, I started to kind of ask questions here and there, um, but I still kind of kept my use to zero.
Or when did it kind of transition for you where you you started using it for medicinal uses?
So I actually, um, I was going through a really hard time mentally, um, personally, because there were so many, I want to say, unspoken things inside of me. So when I graduated college and I finally got my first like big girl job, um, I I was working with kiddos with developmental disabilities. And we kind of worked with the kiddos who were on the moderate to severe level. So they
Mhm,
were the kiddos who were too aggressive,
mhm,
sometimes for public schools. So we worked on them with their behaviors. And that work was very physically demanding. And I had a lot of bruises and bites and things like that. And so I honestly believe that um, because I was suffering so much physically and on the inside, I really never took the time to like figure out why I was suffering on the inside. It was just too much for me, and I completely
mhm,
just kind of shut out the world. It didn't help that around the same time both of my parents got sick
okay.
separately, but it was really really bad for both of them, and
Mhm.
it was one right after the other. I thankfully still have them, and
Oh,
everything's great now, but it was
that's
really
intense.
yeah, it was really close for a while. But so I kind of fell into this place where I just didn't know what to do or how to act. And so I disappeared. So I basically like stopped going into my job that I had. I didn't even quit. I really just stopped going.
Mhm,
I stopped talking to my family, because I didn't know how to approach them or talk
mhm.
about like what I was feeling. I stopped talking to my friends. I stopped reaching out to everybody. I honestly stopped going outside of my apartment.
Wow.
Yeah, like I hit this super super low place where I genuinely just couldn't, not necessarily be around people, but I couldn't stand to be seen. And
Mhm.
I just couldn't figure out why for so long. Um, so I was like living in this space for a while, but was still living in a bedroom apartment. So a one
Yeah,
bedroom apartment. So like I had bills to pay, like I had a dog, like there were things like I couldn't just give up on life no matter how hard I wanted to.
right.
So one night I was like looking through Craigslist and I was just like, I'm just going to get like whatever will pay the bills. Like, I didn't want anything where I had to engage with a lot of people and I wasn't really sure what I was looking for. But I sat on the computer and I was like, okay, I'm going to find something and this is going to work and I'm going to do it.
Mhm.
And so that same night, I found a delivery driver position for a medical cannabis dispensary. And
Cool.
yeah, and so I applied to it, but I had no experience, mind you. Like the last time I smoked was like probably like in college. So I was just like, I don't know. So I kind of started to research a little bit more about cannabis, because I like to know what I'm talking about when I go in for
Totally.
interviews, Yeah. So I did that, and I ended up getting this job. And I'm not gonna lie, I still had like stereotypes in my mind. So I really kind of assumed that I was gonna be delivering to like college students who are partying. Like
Right.
that was the image that I had in my mind. Um, but it wasn't always, honestly. Like, it was mostly senior citizens and vets that I was delivering to. It was like,
Vets as in veterans or like dog, like
oh,
vet?
veterans, yeah, veterans.
Okay.
Yeah, veterans. um and so there was actually one woman who like completely transformed my life, and it was on a delivery. And it was when I first got the job, and I like I said, like, I was still in a really dark place, but I had to pay the bills, so I had to do something. And one patient in particular, she kind of looked at me, and she was all like, she was just she was a sweet old woman, Tori. She was maybe like
Mm.
77. And she looked at me and she goes, "Are you okay, sweetie? Would you like some tea?" And I
Oh,
said, "Oh," I said, "No, it's okay. Like, I have other deliveries." And then she was like, "Okay, let me just give you a hug." And she came in for a hug, and I started crying. I just
oh my
was
God.
bawling, and I had I did know why. Like,
Right.
I had so much going on, but so after that, I ended up staying for tea.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, and she like told me a little bit about herself, and how she was a paraplegic when she was younger, and she was supposed to die,
Oh my
actually. Like,
God.
every single doctor had written her off. But her her parents, they were very abusive. They were bad parents. But the one thing she said that they did do was they always had like cannabis around the house. So it was her older brother who, after all the doctors had written her off and they took her home to say like she only has this amount of time, like, make the best of it. It was her older brother who had started to smoke and blow it in her face.
Whoa.
And that's how, like, she kind of realized that it was starting to help. And then she started consuming, and then she said, she looked at me and she said, "And look at me now. I'm talking to you. I'm 77 years old." She walked to answer the door. Like I said, like, she hugged me. So
Yeah,
yeah, so like that was
that's
where
wild.
and that was where it just kind of clicked for me. And
Mhm.
I could kind of connect the dots and see that cannabis was way more than I ever thought, like, I ever even imagined it could be. And
Yep.
I really feel like that's what kind of sparked the fire in me, because I was just so blown away. I was just so blown away.
I love that story. I don't know if you know, I used to be a CNA and I just love spending time with the elderly. Like, I just really would love to hang out with them. But and it was always
Honestly.
hard, like going to your favorites and then like being like, I gotta go to another room.
Oh my gosh, I know.
That's so sweet though. And even in terms of like pharmacy life, we have, at Independence and whatever, we have drivers going out and delivering and it seems like this, I don't want to say insignificant, but just this like in between role and like quick, quick
Mhm.
interactions, but
Yeah,
it's so meaningful. You're the point of connection. And so for you to like
absolutely.
take that job and be like, I don't want to see people, I don't want to be seen. And like at the same time,
Yeah,
it was so
absolutely.
intimate.
It really was, and I feel like, honestly, it was the perfect kind of, um, like, social interaction that I needed, because I couldn't take so many people, but the one-on-one was enough for me to, socially interact, but not enough to overwhelm me and, like,
Mhm.
send me crawling back to my hiding space, I guess.
So, how else did your wellness journey develop? Like before and after cannabis was introduced, besides cannabis? Because I know you're interested in all self healing. All right, brief intermission. You all know that self care and cannabis go together hand in hand. Today I'm sharing with you the RX for Self-Care workbook. This is a free download I've created to help you establish a self-care routine from start to finish. It was the implementation of a self-care routine that took me from type A people pleaser to inspired, confident leader. I owe my ability to prevent burnout and act from an aligned place to being in tune with me. And now I want to teach you how to do the same. If you want to move past your excuses, create a personal list of inspired actions, implement a self-care routine, and integrate it into your daily life, go to toryrarick.com/RX for self-care for immediate download.
So before cannabis, man, what was it like? I had tried, so I suffered a lot of I don't want to say a lot of, but I suffered from childhood sexual trauma um, that I actually buried for a lot of years until I suffered from sexual trauma in college. And then a lot of that was kind of unearthed. So before cannabis, I was trying to find ways to cope. Um, and honestly, I did not succeed. I tried out therapy. I tried out a few different therapists, but um, not to say the therapy didn't work for me, but I just didn't find a therapist that did. And I also feel like I didn't give it as good of a go as I should have because there were things that I just wasn't comfortable speaking about. So, there's really so much a therapist can do in those situations.
Right.
Um, so I kind of just suffered. I know I'm laughing and it's not funny, but I really can't think of anything that I felt worked for me until I found cannabis. Um, because when I was going to therapy, they had tried to prescribe me some medication, but I I wasn't comfortable with that. I just I just wasn't. So I had instead of sticking with that therapist, I would just go see another one. And the next time somebody else would say that, I would leave there and go see another one. So I was kind of just running, trying to find something to make me feel better. And I don't really think I ever did. I really felt like I was faking it for a significant time, like a significant portion of my adult life. Uh, I I lived by fake it till you make it. There was just absolutely there was no other way. Like there was no facing it. There was no figuring it out and feeling your feelings. Like you had to just fake it and then make it. Like
Yeah.
so because at the time also like I really wasn't talking to anybody about anything. I was in a relationship, but I wasn't, it just wasn't really the time or place. It wasn't really the type of relationship where I was comfortable sharing everything. Um, and I had friendships, I had a lot of friendships, but I honestly felt like I coped more with partying and alcohol. And then that is how my friendships developed.
Okay.
So it wasn't really the type of friendship where I felt like I could go to someone and be like, I'm having a really rough day. And I'm really not comfortable telling you why, but like, I just need to tell someone this. So I never really had that. And that's not to say like the friendships I made in college were terrible, because they weren't. Like everybody was great. And I genuinely believe people would have made space for me if I opened up like that. But before, but back then, I just honestly had no idea how. That wasn't something that was plausible to me. That wasn't something that was gonna happen, I guess.
Right. So then cannabis is what allowed you to do that and
Yeah.
feel those feelings?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was hiding them and pushing them down because they're hard, like
Yeah.
those feelings are so rough sometimes. So cannabis kind of gave me it like made me feel like I wouldn't break
Mhm.
if I let myself feel those things. Um, it made me feel like I wasn't in the moment. And so one thing I genuinely love is that it like almost immediately you can kind of feel the calm like wash over you.
Yeah, I want to talk about that and just like hear more about your experience. I mean, like Mother Cannabis, she's pretty much always comforting to me now that I've given her that lens and like
Mhm.
been more conscious about my use.
Mhm.
But I'm curious to know how you feel because you're explaining calm to me. But I know as a person with anxiety, sometimes I can feel a little bit anxious
Yeah.
after. So, how does that work for you?
Absolutely. So definitely now that I consume as heavily as I do, um, actually certain sativas will kind of make me anxious now.
Yeah.
Um, so I really most of the time when I do smoke flower, I like to pair like any kind of THC, indica or sativa, or even hybrids with CBD flower, just because it gives me like that nice kind of balance between like feeling the high, but also like being calm in my
Yeah,
chest, if that makes sense.
totally.
And so that's what I genuinely that's what I use all the time now. Like I love CBD one-to-ones. I
Hmm.
actually recently heard from somebody that CBG is actually better for people with anxiety. I haven't researched too much about it yet because I literally just heard that
I
from
know, it's, like,
somebody.
hard to keep up with all the cannabinoids at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. But that is one thing that I do want to research, the CBG effects and like its effects on anxiety. Because I heard that cannabinoid is way better for anxiety than,
Which is
THC.
wild because CBD is already doing a stand-up job.
Absolutely. Yes, it absolutely is.
Um, so speaking about CBD,
Mhm.
Violet Flame Medicinals, I see you up on Instagram creating these delicious meals.
Oh my.
Um,
Thank you.
you're working those products. So what's your relationship with them?
Um,
Reiki infused, mind you.
Yes, I'm so in love with them. So I'm a brand ambassador for them, but also Gina Marie, who is the Reiki master and she owns and operates Violet Flame Medicinals. She's actually helping me with my spirituality as well. So it's honestly it's amazing. I met her back in January and she was exactly what I needed in my life at this time.
That sounds
um,
amazing.
Yes, yes, you absolutely understand. So she's teaching me about Reiki healing, crystal energy, angel healing. So Gina Marie herself is a Reiki master. She's also angel intuitive. And so when she makes all of her Violet Flame products, she infuses them with crystal healing, Reiki healing, and angel healing. So
Mm,
it's just all of the greatness,
super high
Yeah.
vibe.
Absolutely, yeah. And she makes THC products and CBD products. Um, I honestly can't tell you which ones are my favorite because they taste so good that I just will sing her praises like all the time. Even if I didn't like work as a brand ambassador for her, I would
Right.
just like I swear I eat Violet Flames something every single day.
That's what it looks like. So is that your favorite way to medicate?
It is now, yes. Like I don't get me wrong, I love smoking. And smoking used to be my favorite way, but right now infusions are like they have my heart, especially because I can make snacks and make food to take with me places. And
Right.
no one's the wiser, or like no one like, is
Right. No big deal.
uncomfortable. Yeah, exactly.
How long did the delivery job last?
Oh, so actually, the delivery job lasted, I was doing deliveries for, I want to say, actually just a year for, yeah, one whole year. And then at the beginning, no, at the end of last year, 2018, my partner and I started managing the delivery service.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So at
So
that point, you were sold on like cannabis. So was there a
yes.
particular moment where you're like, I really want to dedicate more of my energy to this? I really believe in this.
Honestly, it was the moment I realized I stopped having night terrors. Uh, like by consuming, I would smoke when I first got the delivery job, um, but I just kind of smoked every now and then. I didn't really I didn't do research until a few months in. And then I started realizing, there's a difference between indica and sativa. There's a difference between the effects that it causes. And there's a difference between when you should take them versus when you shouldn't, and things like that.
Mhm.
So when I started, I guess, consciously consuming, um, so then I would smoke indicas right before I went to bed, and then they would knock me out. And I remember waking up one morning and like telling my partner that I was like, I didn't, I didn't wake up at all. Like I
Mhm.
didn't, I usually wake up sweating, or I just wake up in terrors, but I didn't with the indicas. And so that was the moment that I realized that it wasn't just other people that the plant was helping, like it was helping me. And I had tried to push away that I had problems for so long that it kind of was in that moment that I realized you have a lot to work on, sis. Like, maybe we should start.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I did. Like, from that day on, like, I started researching cannabis. I started researching different brands, different businesses, like, different ways to kind of get into the industry. And
Mhm.
then just researching like cannabis for PTSD, or cannabis for anxiety, or cannabis for or dogs, like CBD and
Right.
CB, just the different things that would, you know, just kind of make me learn more, but also keep me informed about what was going on.
Right.
So that's when I started going to events and stuff as well, because there's only so much you can learn online. And
Mhm.
so it's also very different when you're like in with the community, because people
I
like you
love
said.
this community.
Yeah, absolutely. I do too. And people are constantly like discovering new things or trying new things. And they're so open to like sharing things with you, and
Mhm.
making sure that you know better, because the people who are genuinely in the cannabis industry for the wellness of others love sharing their knowledge.
Mhm.
They're constantly trying to educate, they're constantly trying to push the education part of it versus like just smoking to get high, the
Right.
recreational part of it. Um, so it's like it's just a really amazing atmosphere to be in.
Agreed. Totally. So, yeah, share a little bit more because I know you're really determined to break this couch potato stoner stereotype, getting
Yes.
that shit done. So, how does cannabis support you in getting shit done?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I start every single day with CBD. CBD tea, whether it's CBD like on in my smoothie, whether it's CBD like in my breakfast. I love starting it with CBD just because it gives me a nice focus, and
Mhm.
then I'm able to kind of get my day off to a really productive start. Um, I also love to consume CBD mixed and THC flower when I'm trading, um, or like doing
Okay.
stuff like studying, because that also helps focus me, and then it keeps me, I have like an insane like focus when I mix CBD with stuff. So it really just keeps me like dedicated and like constantly like studying without having that, that drained, overwhelmed, like you start to
Yeah,
like feel a crink in your neck and um stuff like that.
for sure.
But yes. And then I'd say I love having tea. I always add it to my tea. Um, but also for workouts, like using sativas as like
Mm.
a pre-workout has been crazy actually for my exercise
I think
regimen.
that's a smart pairing, like something that boosts you and then going
Yeah.
out and moving your body because when that paranoia comes in, like that's what you really want to do is just be expressing energy. So,
Yes, absolutely. And the anxious feeling goes because sometimes sativas do give me that anxiety kind of rise in my chest, but I appreciate sativas in the gym because then at that point I'm like I
ready to
have to
go.
work yeah, I have to work the anxiety out of me like so it
Mhm.
just makes me work harder, which is I'm not a huge gym person, so it's like motivation for me.
Yeah, same. I mean, I'm not a I don't do that still, but I get outside. Have you encountered stigmas, if any, as like a woman of color and publicly using cannabis?
Yes, absolutely. I definitely, even not even just using cannabis, I've definitely had stigma just talking about being in the cannabis industry or talking about knowing about cannabis. A lot of people, uh, a lot of men have the tendency to kind of side eye me and like try to say that I don't know what I'm talking about. Um, or they kind of question my validity, I guess, in the
Mm,
industry. So I've definitely faced that. As far as like being a woman of color in this industry, if anything, the women that I've met have been genuinely pushy about kind of getting me into the industry. All of the women that I've come across anyway are huge advocates for people of color to join the cannabis industry, whether they be like women of color themselves or like white women.
mhm.
Um, I mostly go to women events for right now because that's where like my comfort level is
Yeah.
right now. But but I'm starting to venture off to like more men and women events. So
Well, I haven't had a male guest yet, so I'm feeling like I'm in the same camp as you. But it's fun to be here. It feels like a safe community. I'm liking it.
yes. Yeah, absolutely, right? Like start where you can breathe, like and then
Yes.
work your way to the rest.
Yes.
Like um but so yeah, so all of the women so far have just been overly welcoming. They've been like always reaching out with opportunities, like always letting me know about future events or always like helping me with whatever ideas I have. They're always willing to collaborate. It's always been really, really great in that sense.
Mhm.
But it is still really hard for women of color to get jobs in licensed cannabis industries, even in California right now. Like,
Hmm.
so that is, it's genuinely who you know. And everybody who's getting a license right now is kind of, they're more upper class white males.
Mhm.
So there is kind of that, I don't know what to call it.
Imbalance.
Yeah, there's that imbalance right now. But I think because of that imbalance, like the women in the community who have been in this industry and who have been fighting for cannabis, but just can't afford the license right now, those women are pushing so hard to build the community that we have and
Yes.
keep the community that we have. So that's also really just encouraging to me, I guess, because like they're just not giving up. So it's like we're
Mhm.
not giving up.
Right. There's no limit right now. It's just it's open and we're all learning and growing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So where can people find you and what do you have going on, Ivory?
Yes. So people can find me on Instagram, on Twitter. My name's the same. It is at Ivoree Anoamp. I also have a website. And so one thing that I do have coming up is I'm starting a book club. Um, Yes, I'm so excited. So it's going to be dedicated to personal and spiritual growth, but it is going to be cannabis friendly. So I'm going to have CBD and THC infused snacks from specific brands or using specific brands. And that's going to be one way that I'm going to try and educate people on cannabis as well.
Awesome. I love
Yeah.
it.
Thank you.
So how do they sign up for your book club? Wait,
You
it's
can
local then?
it is local, but I mean, hopefully I can expand. Like,
Yeah.
yes, but, you can sign up through my website, or you can go through Instagram and it'll take you in my bio, there is a link that says "Join my book club," and it'll take you straight to a site where you can put in your name and email.
Awesome. So what are your favorite resources? Cannabis, self-healing?
Ooh, I love books. So I love so many different types of books. Cannabis books, I think my favorite one to date right now is probably still the Cannabis Manifesto by Steve D'Angelo. It was actually the first cannabis book that I read, and that was probably a really good book for beginners because it kind of shifted the way that I thought about cannabis from
Mm,
thinking about um, stoner potheads to cannabis is medicine. Like
mhm.
that is what it is. And I'd say so many self-healing books. I have so many, but
Jeez.
uh, but one of my favorites is Daring Greatly by Brene Brown.
Mhm.
And then other resources.
And we can
Uh,
always add them if you can't think of them on the spot. That's okay.
yeah, I was like, I'm gonna email them to you.
Yeah, no biggie. Okay, we'll add additional resources, so make sure to check the show notes.
Thank you so much, though, Tori. This is
Yeah.
amazing. This
Thank
is
you
so
for
great.
coming on and just being, an example for me on the interwebs of what's possible and how much fun we can have in this life.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, yes. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Cannabis, the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and give a 5-star rating. You can find more information about mindfulness and what I do at tidytor.com. Follow the Cannabis over to Instagram and connect with me through direct message anytime. Big love.